Hello, viewers. It's time for makgeolli Talk. Today is part 4, the concluding part of our discussion of rice wines around the world. We've gone through 10 countries, and I've picked a rice wine from each country to talk about briefly and compare it with the makgeolli recipe that I'm familiar with. So that's what we've done so far. There are some things we've left out just by, there's some things that have been left out that I want to include. For one thing, in the how I chose what countries to talk about. People in China can't view YouTube, so they weren't in the list. But of course, there is a lot of rice wine in mainland China, so want to mention 2 of those. One is called Choujiu. Choujiu is from Xi'an, and from what I've seen on my internet searches, it is a cloudy rice wine. It looks very similar to makgeolli. I don't know what it tastes like, but it definitely looks similar, and the preparation looks similar. And of course, it's going to be made with the Chinese yeast balls rather than, so as the analog to Naruk. So that's interesting. And there's kind of rice wine in Tibet called Chang, and that's also cloudy. And the recipe I read on the internet looks very similar to a makgeolli recipe. Again, it uses Chinese yeast balls, which are likely made with rice flour. So I wanted to mention those. And then I want to wrap it all up with an overall comparison. So in this brief survey of rice wines, what I noticed, what these recipes have in common, is that they all get their enzyme from mold. Whatever kind of starter is used in the recipe, the equivalent of Naruk, whatever it is, the enzymes in that starter are generated from mold. So that's interesting. So that's in common. Another thing that's very common is using sweet rice. That's the most common type of rice used for brewing. Sometimes black sweet rice or another kind of sweet rice is used, but it's almost always sweet rice. And the cooking of the rice is almost always steaming. That's very common. And it's also common to, after brewing is done, to add water. Those characteristics are characteristics of makgeolli as well. So that's something that fits into what I understand about rice wine brewing, because that's what I'm familiar with the recipe for makgeolli. So let's talk about some of the differences. Each of these brewing traditions use a different kind of starter, and that must affect the taste a lot. How the ingredients used in the starter and how the mold grows on it. What is that mold? What are the conditions? That's got to make a big difference in the brew. Some of these recipes use red rice or black rice. Of course, the amount of water, the length of fermentation, that can all be different. The process can be different. But probably the biggest difference is that usually it's only the clear part of the brew is poured off, and that's the beverage, even if the remnants are used for another purpose. A cloudy beverage like makgeolli is less common, even though the other 2 I mentioned from China today are cloudy beverages. That's why I wanted to specifically mention them, because I was going through rice wine after rice wine that was clear but not cloudy. So I wanted to be sure to stick in some more of the cloudy, unfiltered rice wine beverages in my list. So if you know anything about these other brewing traditions, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. please, and as always, please correct me if I've made any mistakes. I've just done basic research on the internet, so please forgive me if I've misstated anything about them. And I'm sure there are many delicious rice wines out there that I'd love to taste. And I hope my viewers have a chance to taste delicious rice wine wherever you are. Thank you for watching.